Well, the former Foreign Secretary, William Hague, who's stepping down as an MP at this election, has been campaigning alongside the Prime Minister in Lincoln, and he joins us now. Thank you very much indeed for being with us, Mr. Hague. It is difficult to dispute, is it not, that the unrest in Libya is what's making it possible for these people, traffickers, to conduct their trade?
Well, actually, even that is a very complex argument, because you'll remember that in the days of Colonel Gaddafi, he would sometimes relax the controls and try to put pressure on Europe by allowing such a trade in people to go on. And of course, our intervention in Libya was not what caused instability in Libya. It was a response to instability in Libya, and was in itself to save lives, thousands of lives, which it did. And so I would say to Ed Miliband, you can't just discover foreign policy 13 days before an election. He hasn't given a speech on these issues that I can recall in the last 5 years. The last Labour government closed dozens of embassies, withdrew largely from Latin America, never visited Australia, did nothing for our influence in the world. And so I do think this is a new low in opportunism from Ed Miliband coming so close to the general election.
Well, do you think this government can be proud of its follow-through in Libya after supporting and taking part in the air raids? The country is in a state of anarchy now, and the people certainly are suffering there.
Well, Libya has gone backwards over the last couple of years after some initial steps forward. But we have been doing the right thing along with other countries to try to help stabilize Libya. No one has suggested in any political party, and no one has contemplated us putting boots on the ground in Libya and actually going to sort it out ourselves. I don't think anybody thinks that would be a good idea. So we have been making available to them support for building up their ministries. We have sent a negotiator to try and find an agreed political way forward in Libya. And we're doing this work with the United Nations, with other countries in the European Union. We haven't heard before any alternative idea from the Labour Party. And so, again, I think this is just an opportunistic taking advantage of human tragedy in order to serve the electoral purposes of the Labour Party at a time they've started to slip behind in some of the polls.
Well, what thought did you give in the Foreign Office, and what evidence is there of it in practice to what would happen in Libya after Colonel Gaddafi was ousted?
Oh, a great deal of thought, and indeed the minutes of government will show in the future that the National Security Council have discussed this on many occasions over the last few years, chaired by the Prime Minister, and we've had Libyan Prime Ministers over to the UK and to the United Nations to try to build up their role and their legitimacy, offered £60 million of assistance. You'll recall that we also offered to train part of their army and started to do so, although they did not, their standards of behaviour were not good enough for us to be able to carry that on. So we've tried many things to help stabilise Libya. But the other thing to remember, of course, on this, we're understandably talking about Libya, is that the people who are making these journeys across the Mediterranean are not on the whole Libyans. They are Somalis, Eritreans, Syrians. And so the roots of this lie even further back. And we have to build stability in Africa more deeply. And no government in the world is more actively engaged on that than the British government. And I hope that has cross-party support.
Close to home, you've been central to the Prime Minister launching his so-called English manifesto today. He is the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Isn't it inevitably going to be divisive that the Conservative Party is now waving around a manifesto for England in a UK-wide election?
No, we have a Welsh manifesto, we have a Scottish manifesto. It is true this is the first time any of the main parties has done an English manifesto. But actually, to be fair, to explain our policies to the people of England, that is absolutely what we should do. For instance, that manifesto goes through the different regions of England and what our ambitions are for those regions. I'm standing here in the East Midlands, and it's talking in that manifesto about the number of apprenticeships we want to create, the infrastructure, investment in transport, which will be at record levels here in the Midlands. I think voters want to know those sorts of things. And I know there is this sort of reaction, oh, you can't ever talk about England. But actually, in a fair country, and and that's what we're trying to be fair to everybody. We do talk about England as well, and we have made clear that our proposals on what we call English votes on English laws, that laws that only affect England should have to have the consent of the MPs from England, that we can introduce within the first year of a Conservative government. Those are the announcements we're making today.
William Hague, thank you for joining us from Lincoln. Well, here with us in Westminster is Professor Paul Moorcroft, who is the Director of the Centre for